Now, there has been one hell of a strange day today in Canberra. I'll have my say about some of the protests and the yelling at the Prime Minister shortly, but more importantly, we saw profound arrogance from this government when it comes to media regulation. Now, the details of which, well, they're up for argument. We'll have that conversation this evening and we'll have it over the next few days. But how's this? Despite the fact that this government has been in power for 5 years, despite the fact that Stephen Conroy has had an uninterrupted run as Communications Minister for years and years, it's at 5 minutes to midnight that the government decides to introduce media reform laws, ones that basically give the lefties what they want, which is a public interest test. So mean, evil billionaires won't be able to own media companies. And then, conversely, the industry is going to have a little bit more regulation. The Press Council will finally start having some teeth. At least that's the promise. Now, when you start fiddling with the media, you start dealing with questions about free speech. Do we need government oversight? Do we need more of it or less of it? It's a big debate. But the government hasn't actually told us what their side of things were until today. So, all right, we're going to debate this for the next few months. We're going to debate this right up until the election. No. How's this for arrogant? This is Stephen Conroy basically saying, take it or leave it. We're going to vote on this in the next 2 weeks or stuff you. Have a look.
Let me be very clear about this. The government will not be bartering. If either of these reforms do not garner sufficient support to pass the Parliament by the end of next week, then the government will not proceed with the bills containing them. But we're not going to be in a situation where we're being held hostage in the House of Representatives or the Senate. The Parliament can decide whether it wants this bill or not.
Oh, isn't that a lovely attitude? Take it or leave it. When have you seen any example of any sort of major reform, or one that a government has any sort of conviction about, that they don't want to actually convince anyone that this is the right thing to do? They're just going to say, we've got our numbers, we've got the Parliament, we'll see what happens. This is unbelievable for a government that, last time I checked, is a minority government. It won't actually be able to pass this piece of legislation in the upper or lower house without someone's assistance. That would include the independents in the lower house, the Greens in the upper house. Now, they may want something that is wildly tougher than what is being suggested by the government, or they might want to let the media off the hook. But what profound arrogance from a minister in a government that itself is in a political tailspin, that every 2 weeks there's a conversation about who should be the Prime Minister, that something as important as the reforms of the very media, the place where the public discuss politics, the place where we learn about politics, the way we share our opinion about government is through the media, but we have a 2-week debate about that. Yeah, well done, Minister. And by the way, when it comes to the swearing, OK, it was an accident. But if some people had done that on the radio, according to the regulations we currently have, they would end up with a black mark against their name. And if you dropped an S-bomb in the middle of the day, or kids were hearing it on the radio, people would be able to say that that was offensive. When you do it, oh, it's just funny. One rule for them, one rule for everyone else. 2-week debate, take it or leave it. No wonder some people get so frustrated that they start yelling what they shouldn't be doing, but still start yelling things inside question time. The government isn't listening, and the public, well, they don't care what you have to say.